Raise your hand if you can hear me. All right. Y'all got to start. I can't hear you apparently.
They're sitting in the back room.
Huh?
I had the same class earlier and they can't. We can't hear them, but they can hear us.
Okay, you all can't hear. I can't hear you, but you can hear me, so we're in pretty good shape. I do apologize for that. Y'all are not going to be able to speak out today, and I'll have to repeat some of the things we talk about as the class kicks it back to us, but we'll eventually get there. You all just bear with us. All right. So we talked about use of force is based on the Fourth Amendment, right? We pull it right off the Fourth Amendment. When we get in trouble for excessive force, we violated somebody's constitutional rights, we violated their Fourth Amendment right. Now, he talked about the 5 tiers. He started off talking about there's 5 tiers, and that was the traditional training, and that went all the way from command presence to deadly force, right? And we talked about the new type of training that they're doing now, training that's based off the Fourth Amendment, and it is called what? Say again?
The Graham scale?
The Graham scale, good. And that's based off the case of Graham versus Connor, which we're going to look at a little more over the weekend. All right, and so the Graham scale tells us that our use of force should be proportionate to, if we're looking at the situation through that officer's lens, through the lens he sees the crime happening at, it should be proportionate to the severity of the crime, the level of resistance, the reasonableness to assume that it may escalate, and that the officer's not necessarily required to use a lesser force and go up that use of force continuum, that use of force scale, right? Like we were trained in the old way. And so we said that Lady Justice's scales, according to the Graham scale, should stay, the person's rights should stay fairly balanced with our use of force to effect the arrest, right? Shouldn't come completely out of balance. All right, so I ask you all, if you would, over the break, to write up for me several people. And I may have gone a bit overboard. I gave you the list of several names. I might should have cut them in half, because he said he had 7 or 8 pages, and that's not what I intended for y'all to have to do over a 2-day period. I got a little overzealous, and we'll cut it back. We'll try to be a little less aggressive and cover them a little more in detail and go a little bit slower. So let's talk about, and I want you all to tell me what you learned about the first one of the names that we discussed in here, and his name is Rahm Emanuel. Somebody tell me who he is.
Mayor of Chicago.
Mayor of Chicago. How many people knew that before we started working? All right, there are a few. All right. How is this Fourth Amendment and the use of force got him into so much hot water, he's not even a police officer? Can anybody explain that to me?
He's the mayor of the city of Chicago, meaning that his current administration has ultimate control over the police department itself.
And their use of force policy, right? What is the case that got him into so much hot water that brought him to the forefront where everybody is yelling for his resignation?
The shooting of Laquan McDonald.
That's right. The shooting of Laquan. Laquan was
17.
and unarmed. Somebody, do you know all about that shooting? Did you write that down about the shooting of Laquan?
No, I didn't.
Okay, but basically what I want you to get out about the shooting of Laquan was, Laquan is a 17-year-old young African-American who was unarmed, who was shot. The officers who shot him because, and there were 2 of them, shot him because he wasn't complying with their instructions. Now, based on what we know about the Fourth Amendment and our new Graham scale keeping balanced, were the shooters necessarily justified? Probably not. Court's going to decide, but probably not. My thinking is they were way excessive. Now, here's the part I want to talk to you about that makes him so important. Rahm Emanuel has said that he's going to change the way that the police department is trained to use force in his city. takes a death, it takes a public outcry to create that change for the politicians to want to move to change. It's important that you all as citizens understand your role, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a citizen, whatever your role is in it. Maybe you leave these classes and you get this degree and you go out and you don't ever work a day in law enforcement. You still have the opportunity to affect the world around you, because with that outcry, he began to look at the systemic problems within the police department in his city. But it was only with that outcry. And that's what got him in hot water. When the public gets tired of the way the police work, they step out and they begin to create that change. Politicians create change for police officers based on public pressure. I.e., I told you all last week, I didn't watch much of either one of the presidential debates, the Republicans or the Democrats. I was kind of flipping by both of them. But one of the common threads that I saw is police reform is coming. Now, I don't know what that's going to mean. It's going to mean something different for the Republicans, and it'll mean something different for the Democrats. But police reform is coming. That was the common theme out of both of those. Why are both presidential groups running for president talking about it? Because that's what the public is demanding. Change is coming because the public is demanding a systemic change. Next person we're going to talk about. The two cops in Philly, the Philly cop that got shot at 13 times. Did we talk about him? Did I list him? No, okay. We'll talk about him today. Sandra Bland. Who knows who Sandra Bland is? Tell me who Sandra Bland is.
African American lady that got, she didn't get shot, but she got pulled over and a bunch of stuff happened in between, and supposedly they think that the police department killed her, like.
They found her.
She went to jail and they
found her dead in her cell, right?
Yeah, and they think that the police department is something to do with it or something like that.
Has anybody seen the video of Miss Bland?
I saw a little bit.
Yeah. How many people thinks, and here again, we can armchair quarterback it all day. But even if you look at Sandra Bland's situation through the officer's lens at that time, did that officer ever not have control of that situation? Now let's be honest. Miss Bland was running her mouth. She had a lot to say. But did she ever not comply with any instructions?
Yeah.
No. No. She didn't never not comply. Did she have a lot of chin music going on? Yes. Does that tend to pull officers out of their frame? Yes. Do you think this officer acted more out of emotion and frustration than out of what? Her non-compliance? That's certainly the way it looked to me. Certainly the way it looked to me. The officer, consequently, has since been relieved of his duty and indicted. How does that officer get indicted if she died in a jail cell the next day? Because I've done it a million times. You make an arrest, you take them to the jail, you hand them off to the jail staff, and you leave. They're no longer in my custody. How's that officer getting indicted for that death?
Call somebody else.
Say again?
Did he call someone else to do it?
They don't have any evidence of that.
I would say it's reasonable to infer that he may have had something to do with her death, if it was suicidal.
Maybe, but
However,
think a little bit deeper.
Even if she's dead, a criminal charge is not necessarily against the person, it's against society. So if he's done something wrong in the performance of his duties, then they can articulate that his.
But you have to, it has to be, that criminal charge has to be based on a behavior, a provable behavior.
Right. Well,
Right. So does he get indicted for her death? How does he get indicted for her death? Let me pose this question to you. If I were to be shot and I was in a hospital bed, I was severely wounded, and I survived for a long time. Let's say I lived for a year, and I was in a hospital bed, and I caught a staph infection around my bullet wound where it wouldn't heal right. And I died. And the autopsy said he died as a result of a staph infection around an open wound. Can they charge the person that shot me with murder when I die?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why? Because it was a long time between when I was shot and when I died.
But it was
But
still the
by extension,
gunshot
he
that
killed you.
caused you to even be in the predicament to get staph infection.
Yeah, what's
Okay.
the result?
Right. So I like the way y'all are thinking. Y'all are thinking right. And so that's what I want to tell you. Obviously, something happened during the arrest that they're going to be able to tie to her eventual death. Right.
Call it cause.
Right.
If that makes sense.
But what happened, during the arrest that would have,
And I without digging into it deeper, I don't know. I'd like for you to dig into it deeper and tell me. Without digging into it deeper, I don't know. By the way, sidebar, you all were so interested in Terry stops that I did some digging on the new Supreme Court ruling on Terry stops, and they've changed even a little more than what I've told you. And hopefully, I'm going to dig on it this weekend and pull it up so I can have accurate information to give to you. Hopefully on Tuesday when we meet again, I will take about 5 minutes at the beginning of class and tell you about the new Supreme Court ruling on these Terry stops and give you all of that detail. I don't want to talk to you about what I know today because I didn't finish reading it and I've got some writing to do. But hopefully by Tuesday I can tell you about all the changes because you all were so interested. Not that it has anything to do with what we're talking about, but y'all are interested and I want to tell you about those Terry stops and the changes that are with them. All right. The Vegas police that killed a suspect that ignored 24 warnings to drop his weapon. Couldn't find anything on that one?
No, I looked it up. I think honestly that was too many warnings.
Really? All right, now we're going somewhere. Too many warnings. Did you all find it? The Vegas police officer?
We did not have that one.
Okay.
I didn't find a whole awful lot about it, but 24 warnings.
24 warnings. So that's interesting. And I'm all right with that y'all couldn't find it because I threw some of these out here because I wanted you to see them. Tell me about the 24 warnings. At what time on Graham's scale does it say that I have to give that many warnings? Doesn't, does it? What the Supreme Court says that I have to do is I have to announce my presence as a police officer. These are things the Supreme Court says you need to do before you use force. Okay? I need to announce my presence as a police officer. And I need to give command that if you do not comply, I'm going to use force. Sheriff's office, stop or I'll shoot. Sir, if you don't stop, I'm going to tase you. A friend of mine walks up to a door in an apartment complex not far from here. You're always trained when you walk up to the door to turn sideways outside the door. Reach over and knock. You don't ever stand at the door and knock. He turns sideways. He knocks on the door. Says, Sheriff's office. That's all he says. Next thing, boom! 357 round. Right below the peephole. Through the door. We charged the guy inside with attempted murder of a police officer. How did we do that?
He knew the police was gonna be standing there and he didn't wanna go.
But how did he know?
He assumed. Cause
He didn't assume. How did he know?
Cause he announced.
Because we announced.
Yeah.
You as a police officer have to follow these certain steps in order to make things work. Right? But it doesn't say that you have to keep doing them a certain number of times. It's kind of like you. I think 24 might be a bit excessive.
That's a long
Oh, yeah.
time to stand there and
More than
24
say
times.
all that.
I think they went over and above anything that was expected of them before they used force.
Yeah.
I really do. All right. The boy on the playground with the toy gun in Detroit. Somebody tell me what his name was.
I
Tamir
couldn't find
Rice.
his name.
Tamir what?
Rice.
Rice.
It was in Cleveland.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was it in Cleveland?
Yeah.
See, I thought it was in Detroit. I'm sorry. My bad. All right. So he was on the playground with a toy gun. How many people seen the video to that? Looking through the officer's lens. What happened?
Kid reached into his waistband and saw the handle of the firearm and they told him to keep his hands up, but he kept going for it and grabbed him at that point and pulled the trigger and shot him.
Okay, that's basically what
There's
happened.
also a 911 call saying there was a person in the park with a weapon.
And that's what they got on the radio, right?
And
Yeah,
it
but
didn't say
what I-
it was a kid, didn't say it was a toy.
So
Yeah,
probably
person
he
in
He
park
said that
with
it
a weapon.
could be, the caller did say it could be fake.
Yeah, the guy on the phone said
wasn't
actually
sure.
twice during the conversation that it could be a fake gun, that it looked like a toy gun to him, it looked realistic, but there was a chance of a toy gun, however he determined that. But he did make that,
But
They
on
said he was
the
sitting
difference
on the
between
bench
the
when the
phone,
cops
what
pulled up.
was, and here's what I want to be careful with. The police officers answering that call, they didn't get the phone call. It was interpreted what came over the radio.
It was
that makes
just,
sense, yeah.
What came over the radio.
It was
And I
an
don't doubt that that's
individual.
not what the phone conversation said. But see, what you've got here is you've got a dispatcher in here who's gonna interpret that
relay.
data and give it to the road deputies, right, to the road patrol.
dispatch never said anything about it could be a fake.
Nope.
Yeah.
The relay was wrong.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
How old was the kid?
12.
However, I can't tell a whole lot on video, but he looked like he was about my size.
He's pretty tall.
Yeah, they said that he was.
Now, I don't know that he was as heavy as me, but I think he was as tall. It was an African-American young man, and I think he was about as tall as I am.
He didn't look like a little boy.
Yeah, they-
No, he did
No.
not. In their defense, he did not.
The police officer actually said 20-year-old.
Almost 6 feet tall.
He was how much, 170?
Yeah, very
Yeah.
large.
So he had the appearance of an adult male with that gun. Now, using the lens, and I know this is a tragedy to kill a
Yeah.
12-year-old boy, it is a tragedy. But using the Supreme Court standard,
Yeah.
the lens that the officers had at that time,
Yeah.
is this a good shooting or a bad shooting?
I think it's questionable.
The
I think
orange
it's
tip
just-
was removed
No,
from the
I-
gun, too.
Wait a minute, I got a lot of people talking at once. You said what?
The orange tip was removed from the gun as well, so that's what made it look really realistic.
Yeah.
Well, remember, we can't Monday morning quarterback this now. We can't look at this and with all the information we really have. We have to look at it, like the Supreme Court says we have to look at it, and only look at the lens, through the lens that those same officers had when they got out of their car. That's all we can look at. Bless your heart.
I would have shut up, I mean.
We have,
It's a
we have a
tragedy,
call
but-
where a man is on the trailer park, a man is on the trailer park. A man is in the park playground with a gun. That's what the officers got.
And he
As
thought,
they pull up on the scene, there's one person in the trailer park, listen to me, in the playground. There's one person in the playground, and this person looks to be an adult. We don't know, but looks to be an adult. We get out of the car, and we see a gun in a waistband. And you are trained as a police officer to identify guns, to identify the bulge, to identify the gun. So we see the bulge, we see the handle. We tell the person to keep their hands up, we draw. Everything's good so far. Keep your hands up, don't. He goes for the gun, he pulls it out. When he pulls it out, he doesn't point it at anybody, but he gets shot. Now, right in here is where the question mark is as to whether this is a good shooting or a bad shooting. Right? The general public is going to tell you he didn't point the gun at anybody, you shouldn't have shot him. My response is, you know, as a police officer, I'm not gonna wait on him to point it at me.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, somebody
And
point a
he's
gun at you.
12, so like he has enough sense to, okay, he can understand.
these cops are very upset. I probably should just put my hands up like they asked me to.
Well, and you know, as an adult, we look at it with the police with their guns drawn, and we become very aware that we're in a lot of trouble.
Right.
I don't think that ever registered in this little 12-year-old's head that he was in a lot of trouble with the police pointing their guns at him. I don't think he ever really thought they were going to shoot.
Crazy.
So it was a miscalculation on his part. But the public outcry from that has been one of, we knew the rest of the story, they should be prosecuted. Is that fair of police? Is that fair to hold police to that standard?
No. No.
It's part of the risk you take going into the profession you're going into. I hope you never have to shoot anybody.
Something that you mentioned, like when I was in Iraq, we had rules of engagement that we had to follow, and at one point it was so tense for a couple months that they were saying the same thing. You have to have somebody actually point a gun at you.
Yeah.
In order to draw down on them, in order to give them commands, blah blah blah. You have to actually have someone on the street point a gun at you before you aim back and call them in and made a big deal out of it. But there were a lot of people carrying their assault rifles on the street that were not terrorists. They were just, that's the culture over there, everybody owns AK-47s.
Right.
But it got that tense to where it was kind of nervous, you never knew, I mean, all they'd have to do is turn around and shoot you.
Right. And it's like the old West, they are good at it. They can swing that gun can go from a position of like this to like this in a matter of a second.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're in trouble. It reminds me of the police officer who made the stop in South Carolina. Have you all seen that video? Police officer makes a stop in South Carolina. There is you say yes, what do you think it was? Probably 55, 60 white male gets out of the pickup truck.
Was that in the nineties?
Vietnam veteran? He
Was
just got
that the
electrocuted, didn't he?
Huh? No, yeah, I don't know if they killed him or not.
I think they
Yeah.
did.
Did they? And so he steps out of the vehicle. Obviously, he's got something going on, and the officer tells him to get back in the vehicle. He doesn't draw down. He doesn't shoot. You know, he tells him, please get back in the vehicle, stop, put your hands up. And the guy flips the seat on his truck up and pulls the case out. He uncases the weapon. And the whole time the officer's telling him, don't put the gun up. Don't do this. Put the gun down. Don't. He snaps the magazine in. He racks the bolt. He points it at him. The whole time the officer's saying, don't, stop.
I just
Say again?
Yeah, he was doing a lot
Yeah.
of dancing.
Yeah.
Well, what happened
Way
there?
too many warnings.
What happened there was in that situation, he gave too many warnings. But what you have to understand is, and what you have to know about police operations, and what you already know, and anybody else who's been in the military will already tell you is, a pistol is a handgun is what kind of a weapon? A defensive weapon.
Self-defense, yeah.
An M1 carbine, an AR-15, an AK-47. What kind of weapons are those?
Assault.
Assault weapons or offensive weapons. You can lay down cover fire with an M1 carbine, which is what that guy did. He laid down cover fire. The police officer had no opportunity to defend himself. He was done. All right. The next one. This is probably one of the most interesting ones. The shooting in Ferguson. What was that individual's name who was shot? Michael Brown. This is probably one of the most famous ones. This is the one everybody talks about. Let's examine it from a sterile police standpoint. Now I know that it was a hot button, and let's be honest. The Ferguson Police Department has got systemic racial issues going on in their department. Okay? Systemic. They got problems like crazy. They got problems they ain't gonna fix in the next 15 years. But let's take that out of this equation, and let's look at this shooting based simply on the things that happened leading up to that shooting. Let's talk about that use of force. Somebody tell me about it. Who wrote about it? What do we know?
No, he stole those cigars from the store and then.
Okay,
pushed the clerk.
He stole some cigars from the store
He assaulted the clerk.
and assaulted the clerk. What do we know about Mr. Brown as an individual?
It's
Big
big.
dude.
He was a big dude. He was a little over 6 foot tall and he weighed a little over 300 pounds. He was a large individual. And he was he 17 or 18?
I think 17.
17. So what other distinct characteristic, I mean, as much as they're hollering that it was racial profiling, it really wasn't, if you know the elements of this crime. Because there was something distinct about him that was given out in the bolo. What's a bolo?
Be on the lookout.
Be on the lookout. There was something distinct given out about him on the bolo that made him easy to identify regardless of his race. What was it? Anybody know?
Sides.
Nope.
His clothes.
The clothes he was wearing. He was wearing a gold pair of shorts, and I don't remember what kind of socks, and then colored shoes. And it was a unique combination that nobody else was going to be wearing. Or chances are nobody else was going to be wearing it.
Slim to none.
Huh?
Slim to none.
Slim to none. So when this police officer sees this individual moving down the street several blocks away from the store, he encounters him using a Terry stop. What's Terry stop?
Investigative stop.
Investigative stop. Why was it an investigative stop?
Because he heard,
Bolo.
yeah, the bolo.
Because he matched the bolo, right?
Yeah.
Great.
But he wasn't considered a criminal yet.
He was not.
Okay.
He was not. He was simply detained on a Terry stop in order to ascertain, is this the guy from, because he matches my bolo. Now, this is where everybody in Ferguson gets up in arms. They say the police officer several blocks away was just stopping all the African Americans. I don't know whether they were or not. But I know this Terry stop would hold up in court because why?
Because
He
he
matched-
matched the.
He matched
Because
the
he matched
description.
the bolo. He matched the bolo, the clothing, all of it. He matched. Now, true enough, with the systemic racial issues that they were having in Ferguson, they may have been stopping a lot of African American people. They may have been stopping a lot of them. But this Terry stop will hold up. It'll hold up to Supreme Court scrutiny because he matched. Now, at this point, the officer makes his fatal mistake. Well, it's not his fatal mistake. It happens to be the young man's fatal mistake, but it was the mistake in the stop, in my opinion. Says, come over here to the car. The young man came over to the window of the car. Let me assure you, as future police officers, if somebody is standing up and you are sitting down, you are at a distinct physical disadvantage. You cannot win that fight. He should have never said, come over here to the car, and been too lazy to get out of the car. Are you with me? That's his mistake. Had he done something different right there, the young man in Ferguson might very well have still been alive today. Because this might have played out different. Because what happened?
He
The
kicked
young
the
man
window.
assaulted him while he was sitting in the police cruiser, right? He came over to him and jerked a knot behind him because he wouldn't get out of his police car. And the officer became afraid for his life because now you have a 6 foot something, 300-pound huge man leaning in your window, beating your eyes shut. And all of a sudden you become afraid for your life. So he draws his weapon. The young man tries to gain control of the weapon. He doesn't. He shoots him through the door. After he shoots him through the door, it's not a fatal shot. The young man begins to retreat. He leaves. He starts down the sidewalk away from the officer fairly rapidly. The officer gets out of the vehicle, gun still drawn, pursues him down the sidewalk, tells him to stop, gives him orders to stop about 3 or 4 times. Finally, the young man turns, faces him, and begins to approach quickly. I would almost use the word charge, but I won't use that word because he didn't break into a run, but he was leaning forward in an aggressive position and he was moving back to the officer quickly. And he said something like, "Oh, you ain't had enough." The officer shot him twice more. One of those was fatal. So is it a good shooting or not? Just in the lens of that officer.
Yes and no.
Yes.
Yes and no. All right, I like that. Yes and no what?
Yes and no.
Yes, yes and no what? Yes and no, tell me how.
Because, no, because, well, yes, because, I'm confused.
Well, you're all right. Let's talk it out. Let's kick this ball around. This is about what you all are going to be facing every day in your law enforcement careers. Every day.
I mean, he would have been good if he would have just got out the car in the first place, and okay, if all that would have happened, then okay, he would have been in the right about the whole situation. But he started off in the wrong. I mean, he basically asked for it. The cop did, and I mean, the boy was in the wrong from the beginning. So, but of course, the public isn't going to see it that way. So I mean, I don't know.
Okay, we got a yes, we got a yes, we got a yes and no, what else?
I'll say yes.
I think it was justified, I agree with, yes, the self-defense to, that resulted in that was justified, I think. But I do think that, maybe not charge the cop necessarily for murder, but definitely not let him be a police officer anymore because of what you said as far as him being too lazy to get out of his car, because that whole thing could have been
That's
avoided.
my no.
But at the same time, you can't blame the cop for the whole entire thing that went down, because if the guy aggressively turned towards him, then that was an act of self-defense, whether he was civilian or what.
Well, if the guy put his hands on the cop too. But
Yeah,
the
he-
thing is that one decision that he made to not get out of the car also is going to make probably thousands of other cops think twice.
You'd be surprised how little it'll make them think.
My thing is,
Or it would make
my
me
thing
think
is-
twice.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
you- but I'm just saying, you'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
he didn't get out of the car and the guy beat him and he shot him through the door, but it didn't fatally wound him. Then the cop does get out of the car and tells him to stop. When that individual turned and came back at him after already being shot
Yeah.
once, that's where the cop was right,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I agree.
Okay,
At that
so-
point,
so I would
anybody
agree with-
charges,
I would agree with you, and I like all of your input, but I would agree with you. You have to look at these two incidents as two separate incidences,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even though it's a continuation, it's one long continuing act, these two shootings should be separated into two little separate incidents. The first incident, not so clear cut who was right and who was wrong in that. Obviously, the assailant was wrong for assaulting the guy inside the car. And we're gonna talk about that some more in a minute. But the second shooting, the police officer was absolutely justified. He identified himself, he was out of the car, he told him to stop, and the guy was coming back at him
God
and
knew
even
he
made
had
the
a
statement,
weapon.
"You ain't had enough." So, you know, he's becomes in fear for his life again, and he puts 2 rounds in him, and that ends that. So that was, so here's what I wanna talk to you about the use of force and about this gentleman here. It's called precipitating events. Y'all ever heard of that? You all as police officers, you all as law enforcement officers have to be in control of the situation at all times, which means what you do from your command presence to your voice commands up to the time you have to use force can dictate the outcome most of the time to most situations. All the way down to, and I preach this all the time, and you will see officers who don't do it. An officer who shows up to work in a clean pressed uniform with creases down the sleeves, shiny shoes, well groomed, creates an image in a suspect's mind that they don't want to mess with this person because they're well put together. You get me? I know you all say, well, that sounds like a bunch of crap. I'm telling you, it works. I've seen it. I used to work with a guy. He looked like to me that he washed and dried his uniform with flannel sheets because they had them little white balls all over them. You know what I'm talking about? He wore a deputy uniform and had little white balls all over, and he smelled like. You ever went out to eat somewhere and got full and like stopped at a restaurant like you're shaking your Chick-fil-A stuff there, and you didn't eat the whole sandwich or whatever, and you got full and you put it in the bag and put it in the back seat, and it was in the summertime. About 3 days later, you get out in your car and you're like, oh my God, what's in my car? Y'all ever done that?
Yeah.
Well, that's what he smelled like all the time. What image did he create in his suspects' minds?
A pig.
Well, inept, inadequate, incompetent, lazy,
And like you don't know what you're doing.
and like you don't know what he's doing. Is it now? Those are all of the obvious things. The next thing goes through a criminal's mind: if he's inept and he's lazy and you don't know what he's doing, I got this, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna take him to school.
That's
Not, huh?
Smarter
That's
than.
weakness.
Weakness,
Yeah.
right, weakness. Officer comes out, he's dressed sharp, he's got pleats down his sleeves, his shoes are shined, he's well groomed. His hat, if your hat's supposed to be on level, we always had to wear our hat pulled down level, and if you had glasses, the brim of the hat had to be touching the top of the glasses. That's how you wear your hat. And you look sharp, you put that presentation in the mind, professional, efficient, I know what I'm doing, I'm in control, I'm in command. Criminals look at you and think, I'm probably not gonna try this, he looks like he's on top of his game. You have deterred things simply by looking the part. Now the next thing happens in precipitating events is being able to have what's called command presence. You step out into a situation, you look the part, you have your hat on if you're supposed to have your hat on. I personally do not like BDUs and ball caps. I like the hat, the old Smoky Bear hat, the old state trooper hats. It presents authority. You step out of the vehicle, you look sharp, and you have that command presence. I told this story to some of you all, probably your class, last semester. I went to a football game, and I saw a female officer there. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, she's gonna get hurt. Somebody's gonna hurt her, and she ain't gonna get out of here before she gets hurt tonight. Because she was dressed sharp, her shoes were shined, her hat was flat, her hair was pinned up like it was supposed to be. She looked right. But she was standing meek and mild, and she had her hands together, and she wouldn't make eye contact, and she looked down all the time. Was she given a command presence?
No.
Absolutely not. You may be scared to death, but you chest up, shoulders back, command presence, you make eye contact. You do not stand with your hands behind you and never stand with your hands in your pockets. You stop having to use force by doing the little things early. This officer got into trouble because he wasn't doing the little things. Make sense? All right, let's talk about somebody else before I have to get off my soapbox. South Carolina officer that shot the fleeing suspect in the back. Did we talk about him?
I think you mentioned him, Tuesday, but we didn't really talk much about it.
All right, that one's real simple. This guy's wrong all the way around. Pulls upon a African-American 50-year-old male. It's almost like they're in a park. It's kind of a wooded area, wooded grassy area. There's a warrant on this individual for misdemeanor or something. He has a warrant. He does not want to go to jail. The officer gets out of the car. He interacts with the officer for a few minutes, and then he realizes that he's probably getting ready to get arrested, so he turns and bolts. About halfway across this lot, officer hollers, stop. He don't stop. Officer puts 2 rounds in his back. He's dead. Shooting is unjustified. Why? According to the Graham scale, what happened?
He wasn't in physical danger.
Right. And society was in no danger, right?
Right.
Society was in no danger, and the officer was in no physical danger. So the Graham scale says that our use of force went way up here, and his rights went way down here, so we're way out of kilter.
Isn't this the case where a taser was used at some point? 'Cause I remember seeing a video similar to that. I think it's the same.
They may have tased him before they shot him. I'm not sure, but he was straight running when they shot him in the back.
Yeah, well, I remember at one point in time throughout the foot pursuit, they caught up with the guy, and he ended up getting away from them. But
Could have
the
been.
video, it showed that as he was getting away from him, some of the taser probes were being stretched, but the officer did not have the taser. The taser was on the ground,
Right.
almost like the probe was in the officer, as if somehow some exchange had occurred where the suspect ended up probing and tasing the officer at some point.
Could have been. I hadn't seen that part of it. I hadn't seen that. I can't say. In this one, the guy's straight running, and the officer's standing and shoots him. Even if the taser had not worked correctly, I'm not sure he would have been justified in shooting at him running, because the threat's gone. Posed no immediate threat. All right. Did I ask you to tell me about the Baltimore paddy wagon incident? No? Yes?
No.
All right. Ronald Armstrong. Who's Ronald Armstrong?
He was a mentally ill man that was tased by police officers and eventually died.
He was a mentally ill gentleman. Where was he at? What state were they in? Where? I don't know. I'm letting y'all tell me.
It was, yeah, it was North Carolina.
North Carolina. All right, tell me a little bit more about was he in a market? Was he in a public restaurant,
He was in
a quick sack or something?
He was in like a park or something because he was wrapped around a pole eating grass.
He doesn't like eating a little grass. What was his level of resistance? Do we know? Did he have a weapon?
No.
He was clenched to a stop sign.
I wasn't sure if it was stop sign or
It
just
says
a
here
pole
he
or
was
something.
diagnosed with a bipolar disorder and paranoid schizophrenic off his medication and poking holes in his leg to let the air out.
There you go.
That was,
I've
that
dealt
was
with a lot of those.
recently
Read-
he was taken to the hospital.
Hold on a minute, read that again, read it really loud so everybody can get it.
Ronald Armstrong, who had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and paranoid schizophrenia, was off his medication and poking holes in his leg to let the air out. So I'm assuming he had a weapon in
I
the
know,
house,
it's
right?
not funny,
No, his
but it's
sister
just
took him to the
funny.
hospital because he was doing that.
Yeah, laughing at the situation.
All right, so let me give one little bit of a disclaimer right here. As a police officer, as a state trooper, as a federal FBI agent, a lot of the people you come in contact with on a day-to-day basis, when you're answering calls, when you're responding to these types of things, are going to be people with, at a minimum, mental disorders. At a maximum, they're going to have a plethora of things. They're going to be a substance abuser, they're going to have mental disorders, and they may very well have some type of brain trauma to go along with it. What does brain trauma contribute to anything?
PTSD.
It could be PTSD, yes.
Tumors?
I dealt with a young man not long ago who had come back from Iraq and he had PTSD, but he was non-service. He was not a gun carrying army.
Civilian contractor?
No, he was in the military, but he was in support.
Oh, okay.
And it took me a long time to understand why he had PTSD, but I got it.
So he was unarmed in a warfare country?
Well, and even more than that, he was driving, he had to drive from a port to some type of secure airport. He had to drive a tanker full of jet fuel twice a day.
Oh my gosh.
He had no gun, nothing. And twice a day he had to drive a tanker of jet fuel from a port to a secure base.
He was scared daily.
Yeah, he ain't never gonna be all right.
No, I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't either. Yeah, he's not ever gonna be, and I wouldn't either. I'm not making fun of him. I wouldn't either. Really.
No.
I mean, I would be a wreck. But he ended up, when he come home, he could not assimilate because he had PTSD, and he ended up breaking the law and doing several things like that. But anyway, the gist of it is that as police officers, you're going to encounter all kinds of these types of individuals. Now, I just told a story in my morning class, and I'll tell it quickly again to you all. The way I was trained to deal with these people is to not resist, is to not fight them. Because what happens when you fight mentally ill? All you do is hurt mentally ill. That's it. Well, I mean, you're going to win. You will eventually win. I don't know. You know, it's kind of like the guy who does the redneck comedy tour. He said, I don't know how many of them that were going to take to beat me up, but I know how many they were going to use, you know? Well, it's the same thing with police officers. I don't know how many of us police officers it's going to take to get this mental ill guy in our car, but I know how many we're going to use. You can do that. You can do that, but you don't win when you do it, because all you do is hurt him or her. And let's be honest, if there's ever anybody that deserves any leeway, it's our mentally ill. They really can't help it. I mean, they've checked out. If it's so bad that you're going to get involved, they've checked out. So sometimes in a non-life-threatening situation like that, I told my early morning class this, I had a TDO once. Anybody know what that is? Called a temporary detaining order. It's when somebody has not violated the law, but they've kind of checked out and they've got these mental issues going on, and they make you bring them in, and mental health professionals check them out to see if they are fit to be in society or if they need to be put in an institution in order to receive some treatment to get back to where they can sort of take care of themselves. So I go down to this guy's house, and it's 20 degrees outside, and he's running around in a pair of shorts and no shirt and flip-flops. And, I tell him, I've got a TDO for you, sir, and we've got to go, and I need to take you back up to Tazewell and get you checked out and make sure you're all right. Because I understand you haven't eaten for several days, and here you are running around in a pair of shorts, and it's cold, and blah, blah, blah. And the guy says, well, I'll go, but you gotta let me feed my pups first. What? All right, well, he's got a can of dog food in his hand. So he goes around to the end of his trailer to feed the dogs, and he's calling the dogs, and I'm still standing there looking, thinking, where's the dogs? He's like, oh, here they are, and here they are. And then I realize he's checked off the reservations. These are dogs in his mind, right?
He sees dogs, but they're on.
Right. And so I got a choice to make. I can either knock that can of dog food out of his hand, I can cuff him up and drag him to the car, but I ain't gonna do that because he's a big dude. He's bigger than me. And we're way away from everybody. Or I can play along. Takes 5 extra minutes, but I get him in the car. So I play along. Oh yeah, that's a nice dog there. That's pretty. Let me pet you. And so I pet the dog. And I let him feed the dog. And then I reassure him, those dogs are fine. You fed them, they'll be fine till we can get back. Come on with me. He said, all right. I said, now you understand I got to handcuff you. Yeah, I know. He turns around and lets me put the handcuffs on him, and I take him to Tazewell. Consequently, you all don't read about me in the Bluefield Daily Telegraph because I didn't use force, right? Use that. Now, the downside to that is this. In about 3 months, the dispatcher hollers at me on the radio and says, we need you to stop by and pick up a TDO. Well, where's the TDO? Well, it's in Richlands. Well, I'm in Bluefield. Yeah, I know, but you're the only one that can go get this guy. What do you mean? I mean that he told the mental health worker nobody could come and get him but you.
Same
And
one.
I'm like, oh, where? So I know who it is, right?
Yep.
So I go and get the TDO and I go back down and we feed the dogs again and I pet him and I promise that we're going to take care of him and we put him in the car, take him back up to staff. Again, y'all did not read about me in the Bluefield Telegraph because I talked him into it. So sometimes you can do other things instead of using the force. You see what I'm saying? Especially where our mentally ill are concerned. Do what?
I said every time you say use of force, I just think of Star Wars. I'm sorry.
No.
The force.
Brendan Glenn. Is he our last one?
Yeah.
Did I skip anybody? I didn't skip any of the ones that we talked about, did I?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. Brendan Glenn. Somebody tell me about Brendan Glenn.
29-year-old unarmed homeless black male, fatally shot by Los Angeles police in Venice Beach, California, 5th of May last year.
5th of May last year. And what did he do to resist? What was the circumstances surrounding his shooting?
Walked away from police after they returned to the vehicle. Said that they witnessed him physically struggle with someone else and upon re-engaging with him. Physical altercation ensued between police and was subsequently fatally shot. So basically, they encountered him due to disturbance. Took care of the issue. He walked away from them. They went back to the vehicle, but when they got back to the vehicle, they noticed that he had ensued in another physical altercation with someone else.
Right.
They got back out, re-engaged with him, at which point in time they ended up in a physical altercation with him themselves that led to a shooting.
All right, let's talk about that. You engage a suspect. Well, no, I won't even say that. You do a Terry stop on a guy. You as a police officer do a Terry stop on him, right? You find no reason to continue to hold him. There's no evidence he's done anything wrong. Yeah, he's a little weird, but if we locked up people for being weird, we'd all be in jail at one time or another, right? Mm-hmm. So he's a little strange, but he hadn't committed a crime. Your Terry stop's over and you say, thank you, sir, have a good day. You get back in your car, he walks down the beach 30 or 40 yards, he walks up to some dude and punches him. He just committed a crime in front of you. Is it a Terry stop now?
No.
No. So you go up to this gentleman and you re-engage. There are two of you. This gentleman had no weapon. How does it escalate to the point where we have to shoot him, is the question.
There's 2 police officers.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't have been.
Somebody had, what did you say back there?
Does his fist become a weapon?
No, not as far as the courts are concerned. Weapon is defined as, I can make this a weapon, but you would have to receive some sort of specialized trainings before your fist could become a weapon. I once met a guy, he was from Japan, and he was like one of only 3 of this martial arts people who'd ever received whatever, like a 14th degree level black belt or whatever, and he stood about this tall, and he knew about 4 words of English, and I'm pretty sure his hands were a weapon. But there's very few people like that in the world. Does that make sense to you? I mean, there are just very few of those. But I met that little fella. The guy who trained me in self-defense at the police academy was a student of this guy. He was in the Marines, and he'd been to Japan, and he'd studied under this guy for about 12 or 14 years. And this guy came to America to visit him, and he came to the police academy where I was at. And, about the only thing he could tell you was, I show you this, cause much ouch. And that guy scared me to death. He was about this tall, and his voice never went above a whisper. He was a bad dude. There was no doubt. He was a bad guy. I didn't want him to touch me. I stayed in the back of the crowd, 'cause he was bad. But there are very few of them.
That's how the Japanese police over there are. A lot of them don't even carry. They
Yeah.
don't carry weapons. They just carry billy clubs. All they need.
Yeah,
They're so extensively trained.
Yeah, I guarantee it. It's awful. I am afraid of, whenever you walk up on somebody and you think you're gonna have a fist fight and he breaks down like this, you better reconsider.
You better back up and
Yeah,
face
you
it.
better reconsider, because you're not gonna win.
Unless you can match that stance.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, when he breaks down like that, you better reconsider what you're about to do, because he knows something you don't know. Anyway, the issue here is that when you effect an arrest, not every arrest can go without use of force. But there are some ways that you can effect an arrest that minimize your use of force. Okay? There are things that you can do to minimize the use of force. The first thing is, you don't necessarily want to tell somebody he's under arrest when he's standing over there and I'm over here.
Yeah.
That creates 2 things.
Opportunity.
It creates opportunity for him to think about what he's getting ready to do, and space for him to do it. Whether that's run or fight. Right? So when you tell somebody they're under arrest, you typically want to be in close enough proximity to where you can put your hands on them and explain to them they're under arrest. I personally told people that I was going to put handcuffs on them for my safety as well as theirs, and then after I got the handcuffs on them, I explained to them they weren't necessarily under arrest. Especially if I thought I was going to be in a fight. There's nothing wrong with that, doing that. I'm going to put some handcuffs on you, sir, for your safety as well as mine. Well, am I under arrest? You're not under arrest right this minute. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that you and I are both going to be safe. I'm going to put these handcuffs on you for just a minute. Okay. Well, then if you get handcuffs on them, especially if it's a big dude, you can say, okay, now you're under arrest.
Now you are technically.
Yeah, you're technically under arrest. So there are things that you can do. Don't tell people that they are under arrest if you're not in close proximity. Backup is always a good thing. Backup is always a good thing. You have to be vocal. You have to be vocal. And the other piece, one of the reasons is they should have never had to have shot that guy is, if somebody is going to be that resistant to you, you need to be able to take them to the ground, and you'll be trained to be able to do that. People who are prone cannot fight.
The Brendan Glenn, I believe it was January the 6th of this year, the officers the chief of police did call for criminal charges for the officers because evidence showed that Glenn was actually on his stomach and was trying to push himself up when he was shot.
Yep, I can believe that. I can believe that. So the situation there is they had him prone and probably shot him. We don't know this, but
Point blank.
yeah,
He
they
was
shot
also
there
a
on top of
veteran.
him. Huh?
He was a veteran.
Yep.
If he's laying on the ground though, and you shoot him, I mean,
That's murder.
wouldn't they realize that ballistics are going to be able to tell that you were standing there at this angle, and fired on him?
I think they actually had video from, because he was coming out of a bar.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. We're gonna have to go. I want you to do a couple things for me this weekend. First of all, those of you in Beckley, please give your assignment to Miss Adams. She will email it to me. Those of you in here, please hand me your assignment so I can look at them this weekend. I want you all to do a couple of things this weekend for me. I won't give you as much to do as I gave you this time. I promise I won't. I want you this weekend to write me a brief case synopsis on about 4 cases, okay? I want you to do Graham versus Connor. I want you to do Tennessee versus Garner.
Versus Garner.
Garner, yes. I want you to tell me about Scott versus Harris. How many is that?
3.
All right, and the last one I want you to do is Tennessee versus Ohio. No, that's not right. I mean, Garner versus Ohio. I said Tennessee, that's not right. Garner versus Ohio. Tennessee versus Garner.
He can't hear us,
He can't hear you?
but the class is almost. it's
Wait a minute, I want you, I changed my mind. Take Garner versus Ohio off. I've got one here that's on Terry stops. I want you to do this Terry stop.
Contemporary, the next one is gonna.
Sorry.
Correctional.
Gallegos versus Colorado Springs. Gallegos.
One more time.
Gallegos
The one that's next.
versus Colorado Springs. That one's about Terry stops. We'll talk about those on Tuesday. Questions, comments, observations?
The paragraph piece on these.
No, you don't need to do that much. I just want a little brief synopsis. We'll get into more writing as the semester goes on.
Okay, what do you want me to go back that I didn't?
Miss,
First name is G.
would you take just a minute and give her the names of those and let her look them up over the weekend?
I have fun on my laptop, but I left it at our house. Can I send it to you when I
Send
get
it to
home?
an email.
Okay, I'll send it to
Um,
you.
You said that one today?
Sometimes I have trouble getting my email to come through. Thank you. Thank you all. See you Tuesday. Hope we have better weather. So, don't be surprised. Bring it back up.
I'll bring a copy. Okay, okay. Sorry about that.
No, I just took one. What you writing? I got it.
That's the hacker's copy.
Have a good week.
Have a good weekend.
It doesn't work.
Shoot me
No,
that
You know what
email.
I'm doing, working in
It
there,
is.
it's taking the snow,
Okay.
throwing it on my windshield, so I can clean my windshield off, because my windshield sure is not.
I didn't know.
I'm right after you.
Tuesday.
That's why we're kind of.
I'm trying to get out of your way.
You are good, you're good.
I just, took stuff from Wikipedia. I thought we had to know these. I didn't write it myself. And I just want you to write it over the weekend.
Yeah, I just want you, mainly I want you to get it. I'm more interested in you learning the information than I am how you write it. I really am.
All right, great.
I was like taking my sight test and I got like 8. Like, well, that's cool.
You're not?
I will not be in work today.
Wow.
I have to go.
I'm so dusty right now, sir. Hate that class already.
I am indeed. That part I can do. I learned that last semester. But what I've got, what,
Do you update it?
I go into this class roster on that and just,
Yeah, we'll turn it button up here that has like today's date.
yeah, and I
It says
just,
class.
yeah, I just click it.
Click on class and be sure you update.
I'm not using that. I'm using the one on, just lower on Blackboard. You know what I'm talking about? All right, because that's the one I was told
I
to
did a
use.
farm clock up, but I couldn't find a picture of it. I was like, oh, that's a. My dad owns a business.
What do y'all think? All right?
Yeah.
Are you picking up stuff?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna.
Picking up, putting it down.
Good stuff.
I went on Google and Google didn't help me. So luckily I went to his Facebook.
What are you teaching? Are you telling them about?
Yeah.
May 1? I love, that's my favorite part.
On Thursday's presentation.
Second.
We set a topic.
I graduated.
Today's what's with new business. It can be overview.
Didn't like you today.
I'll graduate next May.
You always dress so
Major,
snappy.
I'm not ready.
Oh, I see.
What did you change it to? I was in nursing and I was like, I was in
There you go.
Now, if you catch me on a regular day, I may be a second. I was like, I have every nursing class kill a lady like me.
There you go.
I was graduating this is an RN. So where you went?
How you been?
Good. I like seeing your little car.
Oh, no, not this winter. I'm keeping
Yeah,
old
like
girl
the
up.
summer, yeah.
Yeah, I'm missing it pretty bad. I just not even be able to put my top down, but
Yeah.
I'll be out of this cold weather soon. I'll move out west here in about a year. Yeah, I'll probably be moving again.
Which part?
Who's the one next class, right?
Anywhere where